Why does it seem like the people closest to us are the ones who cause the deepest pain? Why do their words linger, their silence cut, their actions haunt us long after they're gone? And more importantly, why does it keep happening? You might believe you're just too sensitive, too open, too trusting. But Carl Jung saw something else, something far more powerful beneath your suffering. He believed that the reason no one and nothing will ever hurt you again isn't because the world suddenly becomes kinder. It's because you change. Not on the surface, but from within, at the very level of your unconscious mind. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That fate? It's often made of wounds we never knew we carried, wounds that secretly attract the very pain we wish to avoid. You aren't weak for being hurt. You're simply unaware of the internal patterns that made the hurt possible. In this journey, we're not going to talk about setting better boundaries or cutting people off, although those have their place. We're going deeper. We're diving into the hidden mechanics of how you absorb pain, why you keep reliving it, and how to finally walk through life untouchable, not numb, but free. So let's begin where all pain begins, the illusion that it was ever about you. When someone lashes out, belittles you, ignores you, or abandons you, what do you usually tell yourself? That maybe you weren't good enough? That something's wrong with you? That if you had just done things differently, they wouldn't have treated you that way? But here's the truth Jung tried to teach us. Most of the pain we experience from others has nothing to do with who we are, and everything to do with what they are unwilling to face within themselves. Think about it. If someone calls you selfish for setting a boundary, is it really about your boundary or their discomfort with not being in control? If a loved one criticizes your confidence, is it because you're arrogant or because they've never allowed themselves to shine? Jung called this projection. He explained that what we refuse to acknowledge in ourselves, we unconsciously throw onto others. And the more unaware someone is of their own inner conflict, the more likely they are to use you as a mirror and then blame you for the reflection. So when someone hurts you, it's not always personal. In fact, it's rarely personal, but it feels personal, doesn't it? That's because we're still carrying a version of ourselves that needs the pain to mean something. We want the rejection to explain something. We want the silence to justify the story we already tell ourselves, that we're not worthy, not lovable, not enough. And that's where it starts to get dangerous, because once that belief takes root, it invites more pain. It makes us interpret everything through the lens of our wounds. It turns ordinary moments into emotional landmines. So let me ask you something. What if you've been living in a world where everyone is wearing a mask, and your only mistake was thinking their reaction was a reflection of your truth? What if, all along, you were absorbing other people's battles like they were your own? It's not your job to carry the weight of someone else's unconscious mind. And yet, that's what most people do their whole lives, because no one ever told them how to stop. Now, we're going to talk about the part of you that keeps taking these hits, the part Jung believed was the key to all healing. Now, we're going to talk about the part of you that keeps taking these hits, the part Jung believed was the key to all healing. Inside you, there's a younger version of yourself still trying to make sense of the world, not in age, but in emotion. That version of you doesn't understand that someone's anger isn't your fault. It doesn't know that being ignored doesn't mean you're invisible. It doesn't realize that love isn't something you have to earn by shrinking yourself. Jung referred to this as the inner child, a part of the psyche that carries the memories, unmet needs, and emotional imprints of your early life. And here's the painful truth. Most people are walking around with a wounded inner child running the show. When your boss criticizes you and you spiral into self-doubt, when a partner pulls away and you start questioning your worth, when a friend forgets your birthday and you suddenly feel unimportant, it's not the adult you reacting, It's the inner child, still aching to be seen, heard, and loved the way they never were. Have you ever wondered why certain comments cut deeper than they should? Why some people's silence feels louder than others' screams? It's because those moments aren't just happening now. They're echoing something old, something unfinished. And until that part of you feels safe, it will keep trying to find meaning in pain. It will keep interpreting rejection as proof, not a coincidence. It will keep seeking validation from people who can't even validate themselves. But here's where your power begins. What if you stopped asking the world to love you properly and started showing that love inward, where it was missing the most? What if you could hold space for the part of you that still feels abandoned, without trying to fix it, prove it, or hide it? This is the first step toward freedom, not denying the pain, but understanding its source. Because once you know it's not coming from this moment, you stop handing strangers the script to your self-worth. And when you stop doing that, nothing and no one can truly hurt you again. Because here's the question that changes everything. If people are projecting their shadows and you're reacting from your inner child, then who's really in control of your life? Jung believed most people aren't truly living. They're reacting, subconsciously replaying the same emotional scripts over and over again, mistaking triggers for truths and memories for reality. The world pokes, and without thinking, we bleed. But it doesn't have to stay that way. There's a moment, a turning point, when you realize that your worth is not up for negotiation, that your value doesn't rise and fall based on who accepts you, who understands you, or who stays. That moment begins the second you stop trying to be unhurt and instead learn how to be unshakable. And how do you become unshakable? By recognizing that nothing anyone says or does can define who you are, unless you let it. Think about it. If someone calls you a failure, but you've already accepted that growth includes missteps, does it sting? If someone withdraws their affection, but you no longer seek love as proof of your existence, do you break? What if, instead of bracing yourself for the next betrayal, you built something inside so strong it couldn't be touched? Jung called this process individuation. It's the lifelong journey of becoming whole, of integrating the parts of yourself you've abandoned, disowned, or denied. Not to impress the world, but to become so fully you that the world's judgments can no longer penetrate. It's not about becoming hard, it's about becoming whole. Because when you are whole, rejection loses its sting, criticism loses its power, and chaos loses its control. Now let me ask, when was the last time you truly felt like nothing could shake you? That version of you exists. You're not imagining it, you're remembering it. That wholeness isn't something you earn, it's something you uncover. Beneath every defense, every mask, every anxious smile or forced silence, there is a self that has always been intact. Not perfect, not without scars, but complete. The reason you've forgotten this is because, somewhere along the way, you started believing you were only as valuable as the love you received, only as safe as the people around you made you feel, only as whole as others allowed you to be. But Carl Jung reminds us that the self, the true self, is not something others create or validate. It's not the personality you show the world. It's not your job, your trauma, or your relationships. The self is deeper. It's the total integration of your conscious and unconscious mind. It's the part of you that watches everything, but doesn't flinch. The part of you that doesn't need to react, because it already knows who you are. And here's where everything changes. When you stop trying to be what others want, when you stop editing yourself to be palatable or pleasing, you begin to feel a strange kind of peace. Not the loud kind, the steady kind, the kind that stays even when the room goes quiet, the kind that doesn't shatter when someone misunderstands you. That's what real strength feels like. Not armor, not avoidance, but presence. You become grounded, not guarded. You begin to realize that people's judgments are just noise, not truth. Their rejection is their projection, not your failure. Their silence is their own chaos, not a sign that you're forgettable. And when you live from that place, you're free. So let me ask you this. What would your life look like if you stopped running from pain and instead learned to sit still and watch it pass? Because once you do, you'll realize it never had power. Only the power you gave it. This is the beginning of individuation, what Jung called the process of becoming your truest self, beyond ego, beyond fear, beyond the versions of you shaped by others' expectations. Individuation isn't about becoming someone new. It's about stripping away everything you were never meant to carry, every belief that was never yours, every shame you inherited, every performance you gave to feel safe. You remove layer after layer until what's left is you, whole, undeniable, unshaken. But it's not instant, and it's not always pretty. Sometimes it means confronting the parts of you that you've avoided for years. The anger you hide, the envy you deny, the grief you've buried so deep you no longer recognize its shape. Jung believed that true healing only happens when we bring the unconscious into the light, not to destroy it, but to integrate it. You don't overcome your pain by pretending it's not there. You transcend it by understanding it. You let it speak. You trace its roots. You find the exact moment you started believing that love had to be earned, or that silence meant shame. And then you choose differently. You create space inside yourself where the world can no longer dictate your worth. You stop chasing validation and start listening to your own voice, the one that's been whispering beneath all the noise. So I'll ask you this. Who would you be if you stopped performing? If you stopped chasing love and simply stood in the center of yourself, fully seen, without apology? That's the power of individuation. That's the moment you stop needing the world to treat you gently, because you've learned how to be gentle with yourself. And once you've tasted that level of self-possession, there's no going back. You no longer need to explain yourself to be understood or perform to be loved. You begin to recognize peace not as a distant goal, but as your natural state, one that was always there, simply buried beneath noise, fear, and the ache for approval. You start to notice how little power others actually have over you. Not because they've changed, but because you have. The insults don't stick. The ghosting doesn't shake you. The betrayal stings, but it doesn't define you. You become emotionally sovereign. It's like finally realizing that you've been holding the keys to your own prison cell all along. The people who once hurt you, they stop holding that power. Not because they apologized, but because you reclaimed what they tried to take. Even when you walk into difficult rooms, you no longer carry the weight of being accepted. You carry the quiet knowing that your value doesn't fluctuate. It simply is. And here's something no one tells you. When you live like this, the world responds differently. Not because you've demanded respect, but because your energy no longer begs for it. People sense when someone can't be manipulated and they adjust, or they leave, and either way, you stay centered. This is what it means to be unshakable. Not invincible in the sense that nothing touches you, but solid in the way that nothing breaks you. So I'll ask you, as we near the end, what are you still waiting for to feel whole? An apology? Closure? The right words from the right person? Or are you ready to give that to yourself? Because the truth is, no one else can. Carl Jung didn't promise that life would stop being difficult. He didn't claim people would suddenly become kind, predictable, or fair. What he offered was something far more powerful. The reminder that your liberation doesn't depend on the world. It depends on your awareness. Once you become conscious of your patterns, once you integrate the parts of yourself you've hidden, once you stop outsourcing your worth to the opinions and behaviors of others, then, and only then, does the cycle of hurt finally break. Nothing and no one will ever hurt you again. Not because life gets easier, but because you get real. Fully awake, fully whole, fully home in yourself. And maybe that's what you've been searching for all along. Not protection from pain, but the kind of inner strength that makes pain powerless. So take a moment. Ask yourself, right now, what part of me have I been giving away in exchange for approval? And when you're ready, take it back. If this spoke to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And tell me in the comments, what's one thing you're no longer willing to carry from your past? Because sometimes the healing begins not with answers, but with a single, honest reflection. You're not alone in this. You're not broken. You're becoming.